Welcome to the Red Half of Sheffield preview pod, and I will apologize in advance for my voice. A little hoarse this morning. Because United won yesterday, and I was watching my beloved Bulldogs pull another one out. It's 9 in a row, or actually 26 in a row. 9-0 to start this season. We are doing another preview pod, probably previewing. Although I was wrong against Wolves, I said I was previewing another defeat. We actually won, which is surprising. This one I think is gonna side more towards that defeat side. Previewing our upcoming match against Brighton and Hove Albion. I'm joined by Alan of the Albion Roar. Alan, how are you doing this early morning Eastern time, mid-afternoon?
It's just turned midday here. The sun has just come out finally after having the tail end of one of your hurricanes come over and batter the south coast of England. We're just picking up the pieces here, but all good. It's an interesting start to our season. We've been talking about it on the Albion Roar over the past few weeks about sort of this. I think what we could probably call a consolidation season. We've been so good. I think exceeding everyone's expectations, including our own, that I think it's all about managing expectations this season, because here we are. Hey, we finished sixth. We've got a really sexy coach. Well, the coach who plays really sexy football, let's put it that way. We're getting admiring glances from quite a lot of European football. So we feel as though we're under a spotlight a little bit and the pressure is on. But for me, who's supported the Albion since 1978, I'm just absolutely loving it. And for me, the pressure isn't on. The only pressure I'd ever want is just to see that we can actually retain some kind of level as to where we have been before.
Yeah, that's before I started or we started recording. I looked. You guys have a midweek fixture against Ajax.
Yeah.
Ajax.
Yep.
Wow.
That's what happens when you mossy away to sixth in the table last season. But yeah, no, it's Ajax it's fantastic. I mean, when the draw came out, all three clubs, all of whom have European pedigree. We're not talking about some backwater in the middle of Kazakhstan's mountains or something like that. We're talking about Marseille, Athens, and Ajax, all of whom have some pedigree. And well, to be frank, we've been talking to Ajax fans ahead of the game that we played last week. And I mean, bearing in mind that Ajax are having their worst season in 60 odd years, we're playing them at absolutely the right time. So to turn them over 2-0, they were a very poor side when they came here. And I'm hoping they haven't improved much for the game next week. But I take your point. It's the fact that never mind how good or bad they are, it's Ajax.
Yeah, and it's nothing against Brighton, but it's like if I would have told you 2011, because we were talking pre-recording 2011, you guys would be in Europe facing Ajax. What would you probably would have slapped me across the face and told me you're delusional.
And well, I'd probably say, well, what's your problem with Ajax? What makes you think they're going to go down to the Dutch third division? No, we have honestly we have a plan, but we had dreams. Because I don't know if you're familiar with our backstory. If we would go back to the mid-90s, we were at a club at the bottom of the fourth tier of English football. The chairman had sold the ground out from under our feet without telling any of us. And this is where I actually do sort of recall Sheffield United in this. 8th of February 1997, there was no league games, no Premier League games that weekend because it was an international break. And so a Plymouth fan had suggested, because of seeing what the club was going through, in other words, we didn't have a ground to play at the following season, that he was going to come to a game with his club's home shirt on and support our fight. He suggested that other fans from other clubs around the country do the same. And that the kernel of that idea then really kicked off and it got national prominence. And I recall Sheffield United fans and Sheffield Wednesday fans with a straight face walking down Old Shoreham Road towards the Goldstone ground, our ground in those days, supporting our cause. You had Wolves and West Brom together. You had Man City and Man United. You had Chelsea and Fulham. You have all these various rivalries all put aside. They might have just sort of like casually nodded or, to each other. But I do recall seeing Sheffield United fans there. So, yeah, if you rewind to those days, we're at the bottom of the fourth division. We spent 2 years away playing football 70 miles away. We then had a temporary ground for 12 years, which all the while we're trying to get the current ground we've got. We had to fight local government, we had to fight City Hall, we had to fight national government in order to get the ground. So by the time 2011, your marker, that comes along, we're just thinking, well, we're not going to get to the Premier League all the while we're at our previous places. So build it and they will come. And they did. And it took 6 years, like I say, between getting promotion to from the third division to the second division, or third tier to the second tier, before we then got to the top tier. But even then, we're dreaming. We think, well, how good can we be? What does it take? We didn't know what our marker was. Our first ever game in the Premier League was against Manchester City. We only lost 2-0, but, we were lucky to get nil. It was, that kind of battering. We had to learn our lesson, and we had to learn it quickly. And in so doing, I liken it to trying to start your car in fourth gear. You're really revving madly just in order to gain traction.
Yeah.
And eventually, like I say, it took 3 years to get there. And eventually, once Graham Potter turned up and we started playing some good football and getting the right results, that's then when you see the team and the club that we are now, that's when you see them kind of more brought into focus.
Yeah, it certainly is a whirlwind of events, and it's now if you talk to people in and around like the teams that got promoted, us, Burnley, Luton, it's everybody wants to build the Brighton model. They want to build the Brentford model. They want to build not so much the Crystal Palace model, but it's
Please don't swear in front of me like that.
I know, as they're one of their biggest rivals. But no, that's what I'm saying. Everybody
Chad,
tries
sorry,
to.
can I cut? So, do you mind if I cut across you here? I mean, let me ask this of you. I appreciate it's your podcast, but what is it you see, or what is it you think you see with the quote Brighton/Brentford model that either you're kind of envious of, or that you see that your club is not doing?
When I think of the Brighton and Brentford model, and well, for better, Fulham's kind of got it rolling too, but they're like kind of tailing off. I think it's, as you said pre-recording, you put everything into the first season and you stayed up.
Mm.
And it's almost like it kind of felt like we were headed that way our first time in the Prem, and then the whole world shut down. So I'm curious to see if the whole world didn't shut down, where we would have ended up that second season, or finishing that first season off and then going into the second season. Probably would have still been as bad. We probably would have got relegated. But just how your side has evolved from being in and around the bottom and surviving for, I don't know, the first few years of your establishing yourselves in the Premier League and then getting established, and now to almost moving that needle to, okay, you had a great season last year, finished sixth, qualified for Europe. That's almost like, and I don't even want us to qualify for Europe. I'd be happy if we could establish ourselves and finish 10th to 13th, maybe even 15th every single season. I would take mediocre in the Prem, because it gets exposure and it brings money into the club. But for one, our club's been up for sale for the better part of a year. Two prospective buyers that were shams or being reprimanded for having funny money.
The Premier League brings out the worst in people, believe me.
Yeah, and so it's one of those things, like, one, why are we not an attractive outfit for somebody to? I don't need a billionaire. A millionaire is fine. It doesn't matter. I just want an owner with a vision. And I think the Prince, that has owned United for the longest time, has brought us as far as he can. And now he's like, okay, there's nothing. I got you to the promised land where everybody wanted to go, and you're in the Prem. I can't get you to that level of where you guys kind of got that extra bump to keep you in the league. He's like, I can get you to the league, but I cannot sustain it, and you will go back down. And that I guess is the model that I want to follow, like you guys did, where you hung on for dear life and you were able to almost catapult yourself up into that.
Well, we did manage to do that. I mean, that's the headline stuff, and that's what people see. That there we are. You know, it's only about the last 3 or 4 games in each season where we've made ourselves safe. But even then, we're still sorting ourselves out. I mean, as Paul Barber and Tony Bloom, excuse me, will tell you, they make mistakes along the way.
Mm-hmm.
It seems as though they've got this sort of kind of magic formula. And it's not. It's just about basic business model, doing the right things the right way that are going to benefit the football club. You know, we're not run for the benefit of Chelsea Football Club. We're there to compete. And it's interesting your point about, you know, you want to sort of stick around sort of 12, 13, 14, 15 and aspire to that. But I think there was a long conversation that a lot of us fans had is that given that the gap between the big six and everyone else is 7th as good as we could ever aspire for, and would we be bored of that? Now, I think that's a question also that the likes of Tony Bloom and Paul Barber asked of the rest of the club. Is aspiring for 7th, you know, the ultimate achievements and aims?
Yeah.
But when we're talking about the first sort of 3, 4, 5 years of us being in the Premier League, not everything was in place. There was a lot of things being put into place. Excuse me. Oh, you can tell it's November. There's a lot of things being put into place, but then, you know, where the likes of Dan Ashworth, a very well-respected football administrator, was, where we had Graham Potter, who was a revelation for us, and his backroom staff, where we had certain players that we can get in for tuppence halfpenny and sell for the cost of a small country, and still sort of, you know, manage to function. It's all about succession planning. And even then, succession planning is only one small part of it. Succession planning got us Purvis Estupiñán to replace Mark Cucurella. It got us Roberto De Zerbi to replace Graham Potter. It got us XYZ to replace so-and-so. Fantastic. But then that's not really rocket science.
Yeah.
For me. It's waiting. It's not waiting for the proverbial number 19 bus to come down the road where its brakes have failed. It's about making, so, you know, the club itself has already got Roberto De Zerbi's successor lined up if, you know, he was to proverbially throw that number 7. It's not difficult concepts. It's just making sure that you can, and given that our resources within the Premier League would make us a bottom 6 club, yes, we're punching above our weight, yes, we're loving every minute of it, and yes, there's a high probability, just because of the numbers, that the bubble will burst. Whether that's going to be in a year, 5 years, 10 years, we don't know, but we're enjoying the ride. But in order that we're not doing anything magical, we're just doing something that, and I think this is something you're kind of alluding to, that football owners just don't get. All Tony Bloom wants to do, apart from working 9 to 5 or whatever it might be, Monday to Friday, as Paul Barber will say, come Saturday or come match day, Tony Bloom, you don't talk business with him. He's a football fan. And all he wants, and I don't think this is unreasonable, is for his side to entertain him with some really good football, lots of goals, lots of thrills and spills. And I think that's what we all want. You know, plenty of entertainment, plenty of goals, and having some fun on the way. It's just he's in a position to do something about it, and he's also smart enough to know what he doesn't know, and therefore get the right people in to enact the stuff that he's deficient in.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, that's it almost, if you kind of dumb it down, it's almost like it boils down to common sense. Almost.
Yeah.
It's like if you
have your plan, know
Yeah.
where you want to take it. You know, you're at point A, you want to get to point B. You've got to, mapping that route of A, B is difficult because there'll be hurdles and bumps and road closures and contraflows and what have you on the way. But so long as you stay focused on it, you know, it's, given that other clubs are not doing that and are actually just throwing money at the problem rather than throwing a solution to the problem. And money isn't always the solution.
Exactly. That's what I was about to say. All these, And now, granted, we're not we're not throwing money at it. I think our transfer bill was probably 45 million, maybe less than
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm.
But I mean, you have these clubs. I mean, I think it's an absolute joke that Chelsea's just chucking money at it.
Most of us, actually.
Yeah, exactly. And you guys are reaping the benefits. And the whole thing is I don't know what the news media was saying over there prior to when you lost Caicedo and Cucurella to Chelsea. And they're like, well, Brighton's certainly going to take a step back. I'm like, are you guys dumb? I said, they are cash. They're taking this to the bank and they're reinvesting it right back into the team. I said, they'll be just fine. And
We're doing
look, you
just fine.
guys
Let's put it this
are.
way. We're not going down. Are we going to finish sixth? I think that's a bigger challenge. Because, like I say, we're in the first season of, I don't know, what do you call it? The next chapter? I don't know.
Yeah.
We're playing in Europe, and it's different to playing in one of the cup tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it has an effect on the season, because when you're playing in the cup, there's a good chance you're going to be playing a lower, third, fourth tier side.
Mm-hmm.
Here, we're playing the best in Europe. And you've got it's like, it is genuinely an extra league. We've got the 38 Premier League games plus these 6 European games, and then see what happens from there come December. We've won a game. It's within our grasp to be able to do this. But it's a learning curve for everyone. And I include Roberto De Zerbi in that.
Yeah.
He's challenging himself. Is he making too many changes? He's been dumbstruck by the team has been struck by injuries. That's another challenge for him, and it's just one of those things that you just have to get over. That it's a struggle for us. It's not it's not the same fun as last year, but then I think that I'm concerned about, because we're now in a lot of people's crosshairs, because we're on a lot of people's radars. And even then, there's the fans that didn't actually have to go on the marches and write letters and protest 25 years ago just to keep the existence of Brighton and Hove Albion alive, just see us as this sort of kind of top 10 European-bound football club. And this is so far away from where the history of Brighton and Hove Albion has been. It's... here we are talking, in this podcast, and it's brilliant. And thank you for inviting us on. But the elevated status to which we are at the moment is off the scale if you can consider the history of Brighton and Hove Albion. And I just probably sort of take in your initial comments. It's amazing as to where we are.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And it's crazy to hear that, as I categorize them over here, bandwagon fans. It's crazy that you're having people just jump on. You finished sixth last year and then go into Europe, and everybody, you got fans coming out of the woodwork to support Brighton. It's so crazy.
Well, I think what you've got also is that because we're considered we are a smaller club compared to the rest of the big six, that, this is David taking on Goliath and actually sort of, well, probably not delivering the fatal smack with the sling, but at least actually maybe tickling the back of his legs in order to knock him over. And I think that a lot of people do go for the underdog in this sort of situation. Plus, you've also got then, as you say, a lot of plastic fans coming out of the woodwork. If you excuse my my material mixing there, we've got Chelsea fans actually giving a damn about us, and I'm thinking, well, we've never been your rivals,
Right?
It's just not happened, and here you are, saying, oh, you're just a small club. Well, we know that. You don't have to. I mean, I'm never going to take a lecture from a Chelsea fan about the size of our club.
Yeah, right.
It's
It's so crazy.
let them get on with it. We're having our fun here. We're having fun, and we don't care who's bothered by it.
Okay, I will phrase this next question. It'll be a big one. Give me a couple of players to watch out for on Sunday as we play because this fixture is Sunday because you guys playing Europe midweek.
That's it, yeah.
A couple of players to watch out for, and then give me your score prediction and how you think this game plays out.
Do you know what? When we do the Albion Roar, we never do predictions because this is Brighton and Hove Albion. One day they can get stuffed 5-0, and the next week they'll win 6-0. So, I suppose the players that when they're on their game, are most exciting is the left winger Karu Matoma, who can just go past anyone like they're not there. We have other players like João Pedro, who we got from Watford. We've got Evan Ferguson, who's about 6 years old and is about 8 feet tall. We've got Lewis Dunk, who is, our stalwart centre back, 400 games for the club, went in with the foundations and so on. If we're going to say players to look out for, I mean, it's along the lines of how are they going to play on the day? If they're going to play well, the great underrated Pascal Gross, who sits in the middle of the park, can't run for toffee, but is a vital cog in the machine. We've got certain players missing. Enciso, who scored the goal of the season last year, he's out. Solly March, our flying winger, he's out. Danny Welbeck, just because most of his career he has been, he's out. We've got other players who are Estupinan's not well, and so on and so forth. So we've got a lot of players missing. And if you're sort of then going on to how's it going to go against Sheffield United, it really does depend on how your manager's going to set up against us, because we struggle against, I think, what they nowadays call a low press or a low block. But I suppose us old cynical farts would actually call bus parking, because we struggle against those teams, and then they hit us on the break, and before we know it, we're 3-0 down after 20 minutes. Our defending isn't great. So it's a game that's either going to be the world's most turgid 0-0 or it's going to finish 6-4, and I don't know which way.
I would certainly love 6-4. I mean, 10 goal through it, that'd be amazing. Yeah, I think as the more you went on about the side and the injury list, and we have a laundry list of injuries as well. I think we lost Brian Brewster probably again for another year. Hamstring injury, not to mention we don't have any fit center.
How's Ollie Norwood getting on?
He scored the penalty to win against Wolves.
So I see. He was part of the promotion winning side in 2017 for us.
There was,
and if you find it on YouTube, there is an image of him crowd surfing on a train immediately after we got promotion against Wigan. The players wanted to get a taxi back into town. There was no taxis available from the stadium, so they got on the same trains as the fans. And there is an image of Ollie Norwood crowd surfing over the top of the fans on the train.
Oh man, he's been a club legend since coming to United, and albeit I think he only has 1 year he's played and hasn't got promoted, and that was under us when we got knocked out against Nottingham Forest a couple years ago.
3 promotions in a row, wasn't it, for him?
Yeah, he was
Brighton, Fulham, and Sheffield United. I mean, you think, does no one want him in the Premier League? Come on, one of you take a punt.
He's, in my opinion, he is a great championship player. Now he's starting to get on a bit. I mean, the years are starting to catch up with him. He's not good enough for this league. He gives the ball away too much. But if you give him time on the ball, his pings into, oh man, those are so. I mean, when he retires,
that's the point. If you give him time, then yes, he can hurt you. But if you close him down quick,
he's terrible.
He panics.
Yeah, he gives the ball away so easy. But when he hangs it up, when he hangs his boots up and retires, I hope someone makes a video like 20 minutes long of all the beautiful pings that he just puts in. It's so crazy. I mean, I think
20 minutes is pushing it. I think you'd need a lot longer than that. No, we appreciate him as one of our players. He was never one of the first people on the team sheet, but he was an intrinsic part of the squad. We appreciate the efforts that he put in for us. And I won't say we wouldn't have done it without him, but he was certainly a major part of it.
Yeah, he is, and he's been very influential. The crazy thing is we try to almost bring players in to unseat him. In the 2 Man City boys we had, McAtee and Doyle, at the end of last year, kind of took his spot towards the end, towards the run into the season. And now, because our midfield is absolutely garbage and we have nobody in there except for James McAtee, maybe Gus Hamer is a little bit of a midfielder, but I don't really know what position he plays. Norwood has slotted back in, and he's played okay, like nothing crazy. I mean, he nailed the off back of yesterday, nailing the penalty to win it against Wolves. But yeah, certainly a great addition to United, and he hit the high right. He got right as Wilder was bringing us up, and he kind of rode that high and rode us up in the Prem the first time.
I remember Chris Wilder playing for us as well back in the day.
Ooh, he's gonna come back to us when they eventually sack Heckingbottom here in the next couple of weeks, which, I mean, it's here nor there. People like him, hate him, but I just don't think they need to give Heckingbottom, as I say on these preview pods every week, they need to keep giving Heckingbottom time. There's no look, the pressure on Burnley and Luton, on Vincent Company and Rob Edwards is not as high as it is on Paul Heckingbottom right now. And
Yeah.
that is so unfair because those three teams that came up had the same exact goal. Burnley was the only one that was tabbed to stay up. Us and Luton were predicted to go straight back down, and you don't see Luton's losing games left and right. I think they have almost the exact same record as us. Maybe they have a couple more draws, but Rob Edwards isn't under fire. Vincent
Well,
Company's team is conceding, going out of style, and they're not thinking about sacking him.
sure. Well, one, Vincent Company's a legend anyway, as a player. Luton Town, given the size of the club and where they've come from, and I mean, I remember them as a top division club certainly beforehand, but of course, they crashed and burnt and went down 5 divisions. And again, because of the size of their stadium and the ludicrousness of their stadium, you have to go through someone's back garden in order to get into them. I think that it's nailed on. I mean, when we played them on the first day of the season, we won 4-1. But you could clearly see it was a championship team that was going to have to learn its lesson pretty damn quick.
Yeah,
Some of their defense mistakes were page one stuff. Probably we did to them what Man City did to us our first game in the Premier League, and they have nothing to. The one thing is, if they want to survive, is learn their lesson a bit sharpish. So come the point that we play Luton at their place halfway through the season, we're not going to beat them 4-1 because, in theory, they'd have learned their lesson by then.
yeah, that's 100% true, and that's like more to your point. United and Luton are championship teams playing in the Prem. Right? It's as simple as that. They had
Don't say that because that means that we're going to lose on Sunday, don't you? It's just the way of things.
I mean, that's what both of these teams had in mind. We want the payday. We want the money.
Yeah.
Of course, Luton are moving to a new ground. They're gonna have a new ground.
Yeah.
We are setting up for. And I told you before we were recording, I don't want to be a yo-yo team. I want to be
stability.
I want a stability. I want to be 6th to 10th in the championship. That way we don't have to worry about going to the playoffs and getting promoted. I'd much rather wallow around in the championship and have fun every game instead of getting battered 5-8, 7-6, 3-0, 2-0.
I'm sure it's not going to be that bad on Sunday.
Who knows?
Although it would be nice if we did. It's about time we gave someone a hiding.
One question before I get out of here, and I always close on a hard-hitting question.
Go on.
Your match day pre-match beverage. It doesn't have to be alcohol. What is your match day beverage?
It depends on where I go because the best pubs pre-match are around Brighton Station, and from there, because what happens is that part of your match ticket is free bus and train travel to the ground from within a radius of about 20 miles. So I make a point. I live about 15 miles west of Brighton, so I'll take the train into Brighton. Sometimes go to one of the pubs near the station, and then jump on the train from Brighton to Falmer, where the stadium is. If I'm going straight to the ground, I'll probably have Harvey's, which is the local bitter. It's brewed in Lewes, which is about 3 or 4 miles from the stadium. If not, then it depends on where I go. There's a pub called the Evening Star next to Brighton Station, and it has just about every type of beer going. It's a free house, and it'll have everything from bitters to hoppy beers to ciders to Weiss beers to porters and stouts and what have you, and absolutely everything in between. And it generally depends. But if you're actually after a name, if you're after a brand name, then I've got to give a big shout out to Harvey's.
Okay. Good deal. That's interesting. I have people that kind of get on the fence on that one and like, well, and I was like,
well, also now, this is one of those funny things. When the stadium was built, and believe me, we had plenty of time to work out what it was we were going to do. One thing that the club did do was, it doesn't do it anymore, was have a local beer from the vicinity of the away club.
Mm-hmm.
So if Sheffield United had coming down, we'd have had a beer that was from Sheffield for the fans. But cut a long story short, basically, we all said we want real ale at the stadium, and the club said, "Hang on, football fans don't drink real ale," and we said, "Well, the only reason they don't is because it's never offered." So there was this hilarious kind of procedure that started from probably about 6 months before the stadium opened into about the first 2 or 3 games. So we played the stadium's opening game was a friendly against Spurs, and they sold out of Harvey's 2 hours before kickoff. And you had the people on the board sort of wandering around, "What do you reckon of our stadium?" And we're going, "You've run out of beer already, mate." Okay, so they doubled the order for the next week, which was the first league game of the season against Doncaster. They sold out an hour before kickoff. And I said, "You're not actually getting the message here," because the club were always saying, "Well, we're not sure about real ale. We're really not sure, use it or lose it." And we're actually drinking all the stuff that they've supplied before kickoff. Never mind half time and afterwards. Because one of the things we do at the stadium is stick around afterwards. I mean, in the vast majority of other football clubs, people just leave the vicinity, but we stick around for a few beers. And I think eventually it took until about the October before they finally got in enough beers or enough Harveys to actually, I mean, and the figures in comparison to other football clubs were off the scale. It was something ridiculous, like an average of 1,500 pints were served at Spurs or Arsenal or Chelsea, and we're knocking out 9,000 pints.
Wow.
For a stadium that's half the size. Believe me, if you want to support Brighton over Albion, it's best you get a drink problem.
Yeah, right? Sounds like it.
And my point would be for the Sheffield United fans that are listening to this, that are coming down to the Amex, and of course, it's not Sheffield United's first visit, but they'll probably get to know is that you can get into the ground. The point is there's very few pubs in the vicinity of the stadium. Mm-hmm. So like I say, you can knock around at the Brighton station where you get your train from, or you can go straight to, and then after the game, everyone's welcome into the bars afterwards together, because it's so important that you have a post-match discussion. Yeah. This is part of the process. You can go to the pub and do that, or you can, in our case, we'll just go into one of the concourses where we can watch the immediate replays of the game, and discuss the points of the game, because it's such an important intrinsic part of, I hate the word, your experience, but it's a part of the football day. You got to have the discussion. Hence these podcasts.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm going to tab Brighton as the alcoholic team of the league.
Absolutely, please do. We're all a mess.
Yeah.
There is something quite horrific to watch. That anyone should make anyone watch Brighton Hove Albion while sober. It's just cruel.
Oh, I love it. Before we get out of here, Alan, give the people the social medias where we can find you on the internet.
You can find us. We're on the Albion Roar. Hang on a second. I'm just going to... We are the Albion Roar. We are on community radio station in Brighton called Radio Reverb, which you can get on 97.2 FM in the local area, but you can also pick up on smart speaker, which means Alexa and Google will have them. You can find us on a podcast via Audio Boom. Just look for the Albion Roar. That's ROAR, not RAW, as in you're going to eat some red meat. You can find us on Twitter, just Albion Roar, or the Albion Roar BHAFC. You can find us there. We don't have Instagram because we're far too ugly, but do give us a follow, give us a shout, and we'll have a chat during the week with any Sheffield United fans that are out there.
Yeah, perfect. And yeah, you guys can follow the podcast. I don't know how the hell you found us if you're not already subscribed, but follow the podcast on the YouTube, Twitter, Red Sheffield on Twitter, X, whatever it is, Red Half Sheffield on Facebook and YouTube. And until next week, when I inevitably do another one of these previewing a loss, I will say up the blades.